Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Film for Fans podcast, the podcast from movie fans for movie fans. I am your host, Ryan Dunlevy, joined by my co-host, Rob Dunham.
Hello, we are back.
We are.
Been a little while.
It has. We still have had a few up on the podcast feed. If you want to follow along with us, I uploaded the combined Gladiator review that we did a couple years ago and posted that and posted the instant reaction to Gladiator. So Gladiator 2, that is. So check that out. But we are back. We are back with our signature show. Rob and I back together talking about movies like it should be.
Ryan back from fighting in ancient Rome as a gladiator, and me back from singing at Mean Girls in high school in Wicked. We're back.
We are indeed. And we've got a great show for you. We will, of course, begin with our box office rundown, giving you a review of the big week last week at the box office and the upcoming, probably even bigger week of Thanksgiving at the box office. We will discuss what I'm calling the Barbie Oppenheimer effect. And we will talk about some other similar instances and talk about whether or not this will be a continuing trend. And we will close out with our watch list, movies we've watched over the last week. You ready to get started?
Let's do it.
So it's not a surprise that last weekend was a huge weekend in the box office. The box office top 10 was up 202% from the previous week.
Pretty good.
What?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, yes. It was a monster weekend at the box office, led by two signature movies. Number one this past weekend was Wicked. Wicked pulled down $112.5 million on its opening weekend. Very impressive there. In fact, 3 of our top 5 opened this past weekend. Number 2 came in was Gladiator 2. Gladiator 2 did $55 million in its opening weekend. Number 3 was Red 1 in its second weekend in the box office. It did $13.2 million. It did have a 58.8% drop off from week 1 to week 2. So that's a little steep on that front. It has done $52 million in its 2 weeks in the box office. Number 4 was another new entrant, Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Spy, Assassin, came in at $5 million in his opening weekend. And number 5, Venom, The Last Dance, in its 5th week in the box office, did $3.8 million. That movie is up over $133 million. So very solid showing for Venom, The Last Dance overall. So Rob, lots and lots to get to from the top 5 in the box office this week. Where do you want to start?
I think I want to start with the fact that this is really not good news for Red 1. Like we've heard, there's a lot of positive happening. It's not positive for that movie because the production budget of that movie was over $250 million from what I've seen. And it looks like it's going to get buried behind Gladiator, Wicked, and Moana, which is going to be coming out this next weekend. Out of those 4, it's going to be the one that's going to suffer the most, I think. And that's not great. Although I think The Rock will be doing okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was a big weekend for the musical Wicked. I honestly had no desire to see this whatsoever. But I know you did, and I know did you see it multiple times, or is the second
I've seen it twice.
Okay. And apparently the audience agrees. It did very, very well. Its estimates came in pretty close to what it was supposed to be. In terms of that, it is one of the bigger opening weekends we've seen this year. It's one of the biggest openings to a musical ever. It breaks the pre-Thanksgiving November record, I think it said.
Hmm.
And so lots and lots of very, very solid numbers for Wicked on that front. Uh, there it was interesting to see which one would take home the box office number one this week. I was not overly surprised that it ended up being Wicked. Were you surprised with that?
No, I wasn't surprised. I thought it had a broader range of appeal
Yeah,
than Gladiator 2 would. The Gladiator 2 has a much more narrow focus as far as who would want to go see it.
yeah.
I'm in the group that would see both, but I don't think there's a huge overlap there. Um, I'll say I went into Wicked with very high expectations and exceeded them.
Hmm.
Um, this is going to sound heretical to you based on the fact that you didn't want to see it at all. I'm not saying it will be, but it's in contention to be my number one movie of the year.
So undoubtedly, we'll have different number ones movies of the year.
I'm not saying it will end up being number one, but it's in contention.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Interestingly enough, uh, the roles are the place on the box office list flips when you include international. Uh, so Gladiator 2 is at $221 million internationally, whereas Wicked came in at $164.2 million internationally. Now it's not apples to apples because Gladiator internationally, some places it debuted the week before. So
Mm-hmm.
in some cases it has 2 weekends in international things. There are also some markets that Gladiator has opened in that Wicked has not opened in yet. So it's not a direct comparison, but it is saying that uh, Gladiator 2 has done very, very well internationally.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I would think international brand wise, I would not be surprised if Gladiator had more of a pull. And I mean, Wicked is a musical.
yeah.
Like it's a United States based musical, premiered in San Francisco, is popularized on Broadway. That's not necessarily a worldwide thing for most shows. It's more
Mhm.
of a North and Central, North American kind of thing, really.
Yeah. And you see that in numbers 114 domestic versus 50 million international, as opposed to 50 some million dollars locally for Gladiator versus 165 million dollars internationally. So
Yeah,
you have almost reverse splits on the ratios there between these two movies. But in either case, both of them have to be seen as pretty successful. And based on what we're seeing for the tracking for Thanksgiving Day weekend, it seems like they're both going to do really well and over Thanksgiving, along with our new entrant, which we'll
yeah,
talk about. So it sounds like it's going to be an absolute monster weekend at the theaters.
yeah. And what I read before any advertising budget, the PNA, as Matt Damon talked about in the one video we watched.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Wicked was $320 million budget for the two installments together.
Mm.
That's a pretty significant amount of money, but it looks like it's gonna meet that demand based on how the first one is being received.
Yeah, that certainly seems. I do want to say shout out to Bonhoeffer in a very crowded theater uh, slate with two very big movies for Bonhoeffer. And a movie like that to pull $5 million on its opening weekend is very, very solid numbers.
Have you gotten the chance to see it yet?
No, I was actually going to see it last night and sort of forgetting that it's Thanksgiving Day weekend. Like at Monday, they had a 9:20 showing. So I was going to go to Tuesday's 9:20 showing. Well, Tuesday, they did not have a 9:20 show. So it is going to be in theaters next week. So I will get a chance to see it next week.
Nice. And I need to see Gladiator too in the theater.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm going again to Gladiator again on Friday with my dad and my brother.
And I'll be seeing Wicked a third time sometime earlier December with a larger group of people, our friend group who wanted to go see it.
There you go. Uh, so big, certainly very big weekend at the box office. I think this is definitely trending. I think I already know what my theme of the year is going to be for movies. It's like massive successes and unbelievable flops.
Yeah,
It really seems like is a wild roller coaster ride with some of these movies this year.
I think the other main theme that I've seen come to the forefront is give the people what they want.
Mm-hmm.
If you make movies people want to see, they'll go see movies.
Yeah, yeah, there's certainly some of that in there. All right. Well, that was the box office rundown. And let's move on to what's opening in the theaters this weekend. There's really only one movie that's worth mentioning. I mean, there's some really minor, like there's an anime movie, there's a Hindi cinema movie, but it's all about Moana 2. Moana 2 comes out this weekend. It's actually out right now as we're recording this on Wednesday evening. It debuted this week as a lot of schools have off. So Moana 2, rated PG, 1 hour and 40 minutes long. After receiving an unexpected call from her wayfinding ancestors, Moana must journey to the far seas of Oceania and into dangerous, long lost waters for an adventure unlike anything she's ever faced. The big star of this is, of course, Dwayne Johnson is the biggest name involved in the Moana series. And Rob, the tracking numbers on this one are a little bit, shall we say, outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, it is tracking to be almost double the previous 5-day Thanksgiving weekend record,
Yeah.
which would be for Frozen, $93.9 million in 2019.
What I'm seeing is about $170 million expected take home for Moana 2, which is wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If so, that would put it, I think, number 2 behind the just unfathomably ridiculous $221 million that Deadpool and Wolverine pulled down on their opening weekend.
And one thing that I saw was very interesting and a good point in the article I was looking at was Disney now this year said Inside Out 2, Deadpool versus Wolverine, and this movie. Like they've rebounded pretty well from something of a low point with some of their Pixar and Marvel movies.
Yeah.
There. Definitely seeing a bounce back in the positive direction for them with some of these big movies.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fact that's Inside Out 2 and Moana 2 leading that charge.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting to have two sequels be so hugely commercially successful.
Yeah.
I honestly would not have projected that number for Moana 2 at all because I didn't really think there was that much of an audience that was like so crazy about the first one.
Mm-hmm.
That would still be crazy about the second one because my daughter was absolutely insane about the first one. I mean, she was singing it all the time in the car, in her room, anywhere she went. And I asked her if she wanted to go see Moana 2, and she was like, she's a teenager now.
Yeah.
But it seems like there is a large built-in audience for that movie because the second one is going to probably destroy what the first one did.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there is. I think certainly the holiday release helps. And interestingly enough, I think all three of your top, I mean, it's going to be the top movies this Thanksgiving are going to be Moana, Wicked, and Gladiator. And I think it's interesting because each one of them has a slightly different audience. Because while Wicked could be considered a family movie as well, it's going to skew a little bit older in terms of like the kids you would take to it versus Moana. If you want a kids movie, that's right up your alley. So you got a movie for kids, a movie that's a little bit more older families, and then you've got a movie that's like your action movie,
Yeah.
blood adrenaline type thing. So you have some different audiences that can all find something to go see this weekend.
Yeah, and if you're taking into account Wicked's 5 day tracking numbers at the moment for Thanksgiving weekend, it's tracking to make $92 million, which would almost be the record by
Yeah.
itself. But there's a movie making almost twice as much as it's going to make.
And they
So
have
the box office in general is going to have a massive weekend.
Yeah, and they still have Gladiator projected in like the $40 million range.
Wow.
So, yeah, this is going to be an unbelievable weekend at the box office in
Yeah, it's
terms
almost $300 million 5 day tracking for 3 movies.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty incredible. So Moana 2's previews are skewing higher than Inside Out 2, higher than Toy Story 4, higher than Frozen 2. And so yeah, it's probably going to be the biggest Disney animated release
Hmm.
in a year that also includes Inside Out too.
Yeah.
So that's pretty incredible to be honest. And I mean, I'll have to look back at it once we get to the end of the weekend. Um this kind of looks like seriously like pre-pandemic Thanksgiving type numbers.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we've really been able to say that about anything other than like individual movies at the box office.
Yeah, we've got one of the things that was really evident with Wicked and Gladiator, especially in some with Moana too, is there was a lot of money spent on advertising for these movies.
Oh
They were
my.
all over the place. So
Like
I'm sure their P&A budget is like in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I wouldn't be surprised.
like Wicked did a thing with Starbucks. I've never
Yeah,
seen a movie do something with Starbucks. Like that was unusual.
yeah, and Target commercials and like they were everywhere.
Yeah. Gladiator did one with uh Megan the Stallion and Pepsi.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, really? Like what? Like, do you know who your audience is?
And then it seems like every major movie that comes out now, if you watch any kind of sports thing, especially when it's like a Disney property, there's going to be some kind of tie-in with Monday Night Football or
Yeah,
whatever the big sporting events are that weekend.
yeah.
I'm wondering too, looking forward, like, is this trend going to continue, and is the new Lion King movie going to be huge too? Because they're certainly advertising that a ton right now.
Yeah, there's two more kind of bigger release movies that come out before the end of the year here that will open around Christmas, um, not including Nosferatu.
Yeah. Well, that's not going to make very much money, but I'm excited
It's
about it.
not. It's really not. It's such a strange thing to release on Christmas Day.
I'm gonna go make sure to watch it one of the 3 days it's in the theater.
It's just such a strange Christmas Day release.
Yeah, like sorry, hun, and kids. I know you want to celebrate Christmas, but I have to go watch a movie about a vampire who's just like in bloodlust, and Willem Dafoe's in it. So they're like, okay, go ahead. We'll see you in 3 hours.
Like why are you really I don't get the
Kind
thing
of feeling
there.
like maybe it's releasing on Christmas because the Christmas present for me specifically. I don't really understand why else they would be releasing this movie on Christmas.
It is strange. But hey, whatever.
I'll take it.
Oh
Out,
man.
out of all the movie combinations, I don't think Nosferatu and Mufasa the Lion King is going to be one of the ones that goes down the history books.
Probably not. Unless oh what's that one movie? The holiday English holiday ensemble movie, the Christmas ensemble movie that's got like Keira Knightley in it and Hugh Grant. Man, now I forget. The guy holds up the cards.
Is that Love Actually?
Yes, Love Actually. Thank you. Um, the one of the sub storylines is a dude who writes just like this absolutely terrible Christmas song, and then just comes out and says it's terrible. You need to vote for it anyway. I
Yeah.
wonder if you could like stir up something like that for Nosferatu. It's like, this movie is not about Christmas. It has nothing to do with Christmas. Go see it on Christmas.
I mean, it looks like there's some snow around. So maybe it is set around Christmas time. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, huge weekend at the box office. I would tell you to go see movies, but based on expectations, everyone already is going to go see a movie this weekend. So I don't think we have to worry about that. But now let's move on to our discussion. And I'm entitling this discussion for today, Examining the Barbie Oppenheimer Effect. And I bring this up for a specific reason. Obviously, we know about the whole Barbie Oppenheimer thing, but I'm broadening that out to be an actual an actual strategy now going forward, and that is to pair two relatively big movies that have different genres together opening on the same date to kind of draw everyone to the theater in some capacity. And Barbie Oppenheimer obviously made huge headlines for the viral nature of it, ironically, because Oppenheimer was or Barbie was placed on the weekend of Oppenheimer specifically to get back at Christopher Nolan for leaving Warner Brothers, and that backfired. But that was July of 2023. Obviously, those movies went on to do unbelievably huge things. Um, Barbie made 162 million on its opening weekend, and Oppenheimer made 82.4 on the opening weekend that they opened together, which is one of the most lucrative box office in history. And we just saw another one, in not with the same viral campaign, but with the same effect between Wicked and Gladiator 2. Very different genres, very different audiences, but both of them made huge sums of money. 112 million for Wicked, 55 million for Gladiator. So this is another second year in a row we've had a Barbie Oppenheimer effect. So my first question, we'll start here. My first question for you is, are we in for more Barbie Oppenheimer effects? Is this going to start being a thing that studios start doing intentionally?
I could see it. I don't know if we'll ever have something that gets like as viral and as massive as Barbie and Oppenheimer did. Um, I think we've seen in the past that when Hollywood tries to replicate something that was successful, they inevitably fail at it. And I think that they're typically afraid of releasing two big movies at the same time. Um, so I really don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, it's really interesting because now that you've had 2 years where you've had um, very big movies paired together and both succeeded, I wonder if it is. I wonder if that is something, because now the one thing that obviously the Gladiator Wicked did not have the viral campaign, go see them both, get out there and go, but people did. People did go see both these movies. And I wonder if more attention on the movie theaters ends up rising all boats, is the tide that rises all boats. So I wonder if both movies benefit from the fact that everyone is looking towards the theaters. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Um, Thankfully, the studios did not try to astroturf a viral campaign to go see both of these movies,
Yeah,
and they didn't need to.
I do think the slight differentiation is I don't think there's a lot of overlap between the two that are currently out with people like going to see both. Where with Barbie and Oppenheimer, there were absolutely people,
Mhm.
and I mean, when I went and saw Oppenheimer and when I went and saw Barbie, there were at least like 20, 30 people who were in both.
Yeah.
So that was like a unique event thing that I don't think is necessarily being copied with Wicked and Gladiator.
Yeah. And I think you're seeing that in the difference. Like Barbie made $50 million more than Wicked did. Oppenheimer made $26 million more than Gladiator did. Maybe those are the numbers of people
Mm-hmm.
who, for Barbie Oppenheimer, made a point to see both when they otherwise would not have. Maybe that's what you see in the difference between those two things. Um, but I do wonder if there's not something on here with this, with the box office seemingly being up and down and struggling. If studios will no longer be afraid of one movie cannibalizing all of the attention of the box office, and maybe there is a pathway towards success of different types of movies, even though they're going to be big paired
Yeah.
together.
It is interesting that both these movies opened up the weekend before Thanksgiving, though, because they both saw I think they both realized they couldn't compete with Moana.
Mm-hmm.
So they both found chose a weekend intentionally because of something else that was happening.
Yeah.
So I think there will always be that prognostication, looking at the calendar, trying to figure out the best time for your movie to come out. And I think sometimes studios really miss on that. And I think the one movie we saw that with, I think both of us agree most this year was Fall Guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Fall Guy should have been a summer movie, absolutely.
Yeah. And I
So
think we saw it with, I think it happened, the same thing happened with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, because it ended up coming out the week before Barbie and Oppenheimer. And then Barbie and Oppenheimer completely sucked all the air out of the theaters. And Mission Impossible basically had a 1 week run where anybody cared about it.
yeah,
Uh, so it will be fascinating to see if we get more of these odd couple pairings, as it were. So that brings me to a mini a trivia contest here for Rob. So this Barbie Oppenheimer effect got me curious as to, were there other pairings in the past like this that maybe didn't get the level of attention that Barbie and Oppenheimer did, but where two movies seemingly different both succeeded very well in the box office? Uh, Believe it or not, that's actually very, very difficult to look up.
yeah,
There apparently nobody has picked up on this and written a big article about it, because you couldn't search for it.
yeah.
So I had to ask AI to help me out, and it came through for me. So good on AI here. So I have two other instances. I kind of gave the one away with Barbie Oppenheimer, but you would have gotten that one immediately anyway. So
Yeah.
um, these are movies that were paired that opened on the same weekend, that both had a decent level of success on the opening weekend. And inevitably, there's one that has bigger success and another one has smaller success. But we're trying to avoid the kind of between Wayne Gretzky and his brother, they had however many goals, and like literally, like Wayne Gretzky's brother had like one goal or something like
yeah.
that. So we're trying not to do those type of things. So movies where both of them had a reasonable amount of success and they open on the same weekend. And there were two other specific ones that AI generated. And that right there shows you how rare they are. And interestingly enough, it came up with the um, the term strategic counter programming for this. And I thought, it's interesting. Strategic counter programming. And the idea is to maximize audience turnout for two major films on the same weekend. So I thought that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
Uh, so I will give you the first one. How we'll do this, I will start out by giving you a date and seeing if you can guess. And if you cannot guess it right, then I will give you another clue. And then we will go until you get the two movies. And then I'll get you to take a shot in the dark as to what their box office numbers were.
Okay.
All right. So the first pairing came out together on a weekend in November of 2019. So your first clue is November 2019.
Okay.
Do you have any guesses, sir?
One of the movies, a Hunger Games movie.
It is not a Hunger Games movie.
Okay. Um, that's not that long ago.
It's longer than you think, unfortunately.
Yeah, I should really remember what movies came out 5 years ago, but it seems like a lot longer ago than that. All right, I'm gonna need
Okay.
some.
Next clue. One of them is a sequel to a popular animated movie.
Uh, Toy Story 4.
No,
Um, what year did Toy Story 4 come out?
that was a good question.
I'm curious.
I will look that up.
I think it's newer than 2019. Um,
It was 2019, but no.
okay.
So you got the
Uh,
right year, but wrong movie. Your next clue, I'll give you a clue about the second movie in this tandem.
okay.
It is about a beloved children's figure.
Paddington.
No.
Uh, wow, striking out here.
The actor in the movie about a beloved children's figure was Tom Hanks. The children's figure is a real life person and not an animated character.
Oh, so Saving Mr. Banks.
No.
No, that's older. Tom Hanks. Oh, um, no, that's newer than that. I was gonna say the Mr. Rogers movie, but that was newer than 2019.
No, you are correct.
Okay,
Do you
and
remember what the
that
title
was
was?
called "Won't You Be My Neighbor."
It was A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Oh, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Oh, "Won't You Be My Neighbor"? I think it was a documentary.
Yeah,
Okay.
one of them's the documentary, which came out like the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood was the second of the two movies.
Okay.
The first one is, again, a sequel to a very, very popular animated movie. It has a winter theme.
Frozen 2.
Yes. Yes. So the pairing here was Frozen 2 and A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Both came out on the same weekend, November 2019. Frozen 2, can you guess what its box office take home was?
Like the total.
The
Or
total on the opening weekend.
so that was, and we're not saying like 5 day numbers because that was Thanksgiving.
I don't, it just says 2019. It didn't give me the exact date. So I don't know if it was Thanksgiving weekend or not. I'm guessing it was right around then, but
I want to say like 80 million.
it was 130.2 million.
Okay.
And a guess on A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
45.
13.3.
Oh, so a lot lower.
Yeah. And there will be a point to make about this in a second. All right, your second one. July 18th, 2008. July 18th, 2008. So thinking a big summer blockbuster. And there are two movies here paired together.
I have absolutely no hope of guessing this without more clues. So,
Okay. One of them is a musical based on a Broadway play.
and the other,
The other has a very famous director and an actor who was deceased before his time.
all right. Next clue.
The musical stars Amanda Seyfried and also stars someone in there who is singing who probably should not be singing.
Les Mis.
No, but you were right on
I
that as well.
was thinking Russell Crowe.
Right. Think of another popular male actor who sang in a musical and probably shouldn't have.
All right. What's the other clue for next clue for the other one?
Okay. It is one of the very few movies of this genre to attract Oscar attention.
Feel like I like very like small little pinpricks of thought here that are not coalescing into. All right, do you have further clues for either of them?
Yeah, sure. Um, one of them has a soundtrack based on the band ABBA.
Mamma Mia.
Yes. Mamma Mia is the second movie in this duo.
Okay.
The other one is the probably the greatest movie of its genre. And the genre is a comic book character.
And this is the one with the famous director and actor who passed before his time.
Yes.
Okay.
2008. I'm trying to give you clues without like actually giving it to you, but
I know. When you say that, I think Black Panther, but Black Panther doesn't have like a famous director, so it's not
nope,
that.
not Black Panther.
And I see too many movies.
All right. So I will give you another clue. It has Gary Oldman in it.
Where's time? Comic book movie. All right, I'm at a loss. What is it?
The Dark Knight.
Oh my gosh! Wow. All right, I feel really dumb now.
It's all good.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So The Dark Knight was paired with Mamma Mia, and they both opened July 18th, 2008. Any guess on The Dark Knight's opening weekend?
130 million.
158 million.
Okay.
Mamma Mia.
Hmm. 35.
Close.
Okay.
27.7. Yeah. Um, these are the big ones that AI generated when I asked it for this set of parameters.
Mm-hmm.
And what this tells me is that the two we've seen the past 2 years are by far the most successful movie pairings to open on the same weekend ever.
Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, the second movie in the first duo made 13.3 million. The
Yeah.
second movie in the second made 27.7.
Yeah.
I mean, Oppenheimer made 82.4.
Hmm.
The second movie this past weekend was Gladiator 55. Like,
Yeah.
those are substantially bigger numbers.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out a way to ask AI how to torture you in the near episode here coming up. So I'm not the only one who looks dumb.
No, it's not easy to think of when you're positive and coming from the opposite direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Uh so I just thought that was kind of fun to kind of a fun way to look at that rather than just to do it straightforward. But yeah, duos that both succeed are a relatively new phenomenon.
Hmm.
All right. We'll conclude today with our watch list movies we've watched over the last week. Rob, what'd you watch?
I watched Wicked twice.
Nice. There you go.
Once in 4D, which was a very cool experience that I
Hmm.
never had before. Um, the seats were moving around. It felt like you were flying during the flying scenes. There was uh, air hissing at you. There was fog coming up. There some scenes there in a lot of ways it seemed like it was trying to put you in the place of the character, like whoever the character was on screen, whatever was happening to
Hmm.
them, you were feeling. So at one point, the monkeys are sprouting their wings, the flying monkeys, and when the like wing pops up through his back, there was like bumper in the back behind the seat that
Hmm.
like hit you like right in the shoulder,
Hmm.
like you could feel it like as it. It's kind of cool. Um, I will say that I it's not something I would necessarily do all the time, but it was an enjoyable experience, and I would do it again. So. And then I saw Wicked again with my daughter the other night because she really wanted to see it, and I have not had a lot of opportunities to go to movies with just my daughter.
Hmm.
So that was a really cool experience. We got her like a Wicked pin, and we got snacks, and she won a Venom mini poster, the Regal little spinny
Hmm.
wheel thing.
Nice.
So she had a great time, and I had a good time. So I think that kind of connection, father daughter, mother daughter, is happening a lot with this movie.
Sweet.
So.
Yeah. Would you say your 4D experience enhanced your enjoyment of the movie? Or were there times where it was felt like a distraction?
I think the answer to that question is yes
Okay.
to both.
Okay.
Um, it did feel a little distracting at times. Sometimes to be like, I don't think it's necessary to be doing something here, but it also wasn't happening all the time. Like there were some scenes where it was just dialogue where nothing was happening at all. Um, I felt like they could have done a little more, maybe with like water effects or smells or things like that. It didn't really happen. But overall, I enjoyed the experience, and it was interesting hearing the reactions from people when they did the like Regal roller coaster thing at the beginning.
Hmm.
You could tell by people's reactions that a lot of people had never done this kind of thing before, like just the laughter in the audience and the like oohs and ahs. And the best reaction was the row in front of us where a teenage girl leaned over to her dad and said, "Why did you get 4D tickets?" And his response, "It's only a few hours because if you don't know, Wicked is 2 hours and 40 minutes long."
Yeah, that's a long one.
Yeah, it's wicked long.
Yeah.
I will say, if you are a fan of musicals at all, you need to see this movie. I'm a big fan of the musical in general, and they did an excellent job at translating it to a screen, in my opinion. So,
Nice. Yeah. If I were a fan of the genre, I might be right there with you. Um, the big one I saw this week was, of course, Gladiator 2. I did give a number of my instant thoughts when it came to the first, when it came to my review of the movie. You can listen to that on our podcast feed. What I will say is, if you look at it as a standalone movie, it is a good to very good movie. Where it can get into trouble is when you start comparing this movie to the first movie. And so obviously it intentionally invites that comparison by being Gladiator 2. So how you work that out amongst yourself as you see the movie is interesting, but it's absolutely worth seeing.
So my question would be: is there enough of a connection in your mind
Mhm.
between the two movies for it to be considered a true sequel to the movie, or is it really just an entirely different story?
No, it is a continuation. I would say it is. There is enough connection. There are multiple characters who repeat from the first movie to the second movie. And there is a general story impetus that is a carryover from the first movie. So I do think you can reasonably call it Gladiator 2 as opposed to a completely separate story along those lines. Um, there was even a critique in the instant reaction that maybe there was maybe there was too much of a connection. There was disagreement. That was not a unanimous
Mm-hmm.
opinion. There was disagreement on that opinion.
So, as someone who's such a big fan of the movie, based on your fandom of the previous
Mm-hmm.
film and what you saw in the trailers leading into this film, was there anything that happened in Gladiator 2 that surprised you?
Surprise. Mm, I don't know that I could say anything shocked me or surprised me in a major way.
Mm-hmm.
There are some interesting twists and turns in the film itself. But I don't think there was anything that I was like didn't realize that I was unexpected based on what my anticipation was going in. Other
So,
than like it's a new story that I haven't seen before.
what I'm hearing in general from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is
Mhm.
that although it's not necessarily on the same level as the first one, it doesn't really tarnish the legacy of the first one, or it's not a weak follow up to the first one.
It is what I would say is I do not believe it tarnishes the first one. I can see there was one person who disagreed with that in amongst our group, and I can understand their point. And I would say, no, I don't think it is while I don't think it is on the same level as the first movie, I don't think that it dramatically takes away from the first movie. I think it does give you some interesting elements to continue the story. Um, but you just can't expect it to be what the first movie was.
Yeah, yeah. I think anyone going into it expecting it to be what the first movie was is setting themselves up for disappointment
Yeah.
right off the
There,
bat.
there was always the hope that maybe they could exceed. But I think when we went around and talked about what our pre-movie expectation level was on a 1 to 10, it went between 4 and 6 between everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone was kind of like the expectation level was muted, but not in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
And most people felt that it met the level of expectation that they went into the film with.
All
So,
right.
yeah, look forward to when you get around to seeing it. Then we can have a good dialogue about it.
Yeah, and everyone should make sure that they get Apple TV Plus or visit their local library and watch It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown at some point in the next couple weeks.
Yep. Uh, on a side note, I am annoyed with Warner Brothers and the fact that they basically like did not release Juror number 2
Mm,
in theaters. I was supposed to do a story on this, but then we didn't get to do a podcast. But basically, this was going to be like Clint Eastwood's last movie, and it actually looked like it was going to be a pretty good movie. And Warner Brothers like preemptively decided before releasing it that it was not going to be a good movie. Released it in 50 theaters for 1 week and then pulled it.
Oh wow, that's why I didn't hear anything about it.
It was nowhere, like 50 theaters across the entire country, and then ditched it. It was like, come on, guys, what are you doing?
So we should be seeing it on Max sometime soon, I guess.
December 20th.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's pretty soon.
so yeah, I'm annoyed, but so negative props to you, Warner Brothers. All right, if you like this podcast, rate, subscribe, tell your friends, visit filmforfans.com. I'm hoping in the next week I will have my written review of Gladiator. I want to wait till I see it a second time, and then I will do a write-up written review of Gladiator to post on filmforfans.com. But check us out on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms.
I'd also like to say that if you don't like the podcast, rate it as well, but lie and tell your enemies, because we'll take anyone who wants to listen.
For sure. If you want to hate listen to this podcast, that is 100% okay.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Until next time, enjoy the podcast and enjoy the movies.